Hi, Court. Emily, can you hear me? This is Brandon Leach, PennDOT.
Brandon, I can hear you.
Okay. Yep. I apologize. I think I hit the wrong link and I was trying to get into the meeting here. So
No worries. We're just about to start, so whenever you're ready, Matt, you can call the meeting to order.
All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to bring the meeting of the MPO Technical Advisory Committee to order. First item on the agenda would be public comments on agenda items. Does anybody of the public have any comments on the listed agenda items today?
Yes, this is Freda Tepfer. I do have comments on the agenda items. Can you hear me?
You can, Freda, go ahead.
Okay, just a minute. I have to. Well, I want to say where I was able to figure out what was going on. I'm concerned about some of the projects being delayed, and I don't understand when you say we're federalizing the funding. I guess I would like to know whether these and whether this project's being delayed till 27, is that certain funding or maybe funding? And all this delay is because of the Central Bayfront project, which again, I oppose because it really does not reflect current transportation planning wise trends of making a roadway a part of the community rather than a way to move vehicles through a community faster, and it does not really enhance the connection. But specific projects I'm concerned about, the MMPS 109147, the Zook Road project. There should be, if you're going to improve signals, you should have at the minimum APSs at West 20th, West 32nd, West 38th, and Zimmerly if it goes that far. 113882 should also include APS signalization. I'm glad to see projects in Mill Creek including ADA curb ramps, but APS signals are also needed. I'm concerned about the bikeway project in Erie. As your document says, this was planned in a plan from 2017. This project, while it was addressed in the active Erie plan, which had very little public involvement other than pinpoints on a map, this project has not undergone community involvement with the people who live along Green Garden. And I have raised with City of Erie and with the MPO concerns about how is this going to work. A separated bike lane does have an impact on the ability of people who are blind and visually impaired to travel safely, to understand, to know when, because of the separation between the pedestrian and the vehicles, the additional separation by the bikes makes it harder to discern when it's safe to cross the street. At a minimum, there should be APSs wherever there are signalized crossings. Not especially 32nd, 38th, which did not have an APS when the state did a project along there. There should be a four-way stop at West 8th and Green Garden, in the addition of sidewalks between West 12th and the Bayfront Parkway. But there's a lot of issues with this project. How is it going to impact travel, especially between 26th and the Bayfront Parkway? I'm very familiar with that area, and I don't understand how they're going to fit this amenity in. Might have additional comments at the end of the meeting, but that's my comments to the best of my knowledge on the items that you're going to be voting on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Freda, and I'm sure Brandon will cover some of the issues about the changes to the tip, and Courtney maybe even could touch on that a little bit. Do we have anybody else from the public that wishes to speak about agenda items?
Hi, this is Anna Franz at our West Bayfront. I can't figure out how to raise my hand, but
Okay, we've
was
got you. Go ahead.
sorry, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. My connection's a little bit bad. So I appreciate your time. I'm here to speak about the proposed tip amendment regarding the crossing at the Bayfront Parkway and Cranberry Street, and really just to express my support, because this project has been very much supported by neighbors in the West Bayfront area. There's been a lot of concern about the safety of that crossing across the parkway. With the existing light, the way it sort of is already configured, and a lot of interest in having a push button light that will actually stop traffic and permit a safe crossing across the parkway. So really just want to say that there's a tremendous amount of support for that project. We're really excited to see that it's moving forward, that it's on the tip, and seems to be moving forward towards design and construction. I think the one thought that comes to mind is whether there is any possibility of incorporating some kind of pedestrian refuge for that crossing, just to really help make that crossing even safer and more feasible for people who are trying to access the waterfront from the West Bayfront neighborhoods there. So we're definitely happy to play any role or provide any additional input as the design proceeds, but wanted to express our thanks and support for the project.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else from the public to speak about agenda items? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 3, the 2023 Transportation Improvement Program. I'll turn it over to Brandon Leach to speak about that.
All right, thanks, Matt. So I just wanted to cover, we have basically 2 types of charts to go over today. Let me pull this up here. The first ones are going to be the basically tip modifications that have been committed. And then the second one will involve the amendments and modifications that have not been committed because they're pending a MPO vote, as well as approval from the Federal Highway Administration. So the first charts I'll go through, basically since the September 14th coordinating committee meeting, we've had 3 administrative modifications to the now 2023 Erie Highway Bridge tip, and 2 amendments to share with the TAC today. Basically and I did want to highlight that because we, as of October 1st, we are now on the new the 2023 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. It was approved by the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration on September 29th of this year. So to go through that, we did have 2 amendments that were voted at the September 14th meeting. The one was to add the Union LaBeouf local bridge project to the Erie tip. And that was approved then and received approval from the feds on October 27th. And the other amendment was to add 3 local Fed aid route projects to the 2023 tip. That was also approved by the committee on the 14th, as well as the Federal Highway Administration on October 31st. Other than that, I wasn't planning on covering any of the other administrative modifications in detail, unless anyone had any further questions with that first chart, I should say.
Does anybody from the committee have any questions?
The federal aid, those federal aids, what are those part of the federal aid? Does that have anything to do with like Westerville number 6 on the one? Are we part of that add-on?
No, unfortunately, there wasn't enough funds.
Okay.
To go down to Wesleyville. So these were the worst condition that we could fund.
Okay.
So unfortunately,
But I mean, these add-ons, or where is this coming from as far as federal aid? That's the question.
so we had a local federal aid route line item in the TIP. So we're drawing down from that line item based on those applications that Wesleyville put in, as well as other municipalities put in.
So the change or the addition is just the specific projects that rank the highest being programmed.
Okay.
It's no change in funding, if that's correct.
So these projects were ranked higher than Westerville, or?
Yes. Based on condition and ADT.
And there is, I don't have it here, but there is a ranking list and we can give you those. If you need. Any other questions before Brandon continues? Okay, Brandon, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So to go on to the next set of charts, these are the ones that would require approval from the from the committee before being able to have the actions committed. And I understand that with the TAC, we can't vote on these today, but we did still want to present them to the group, showing which ones were amendments and the reasons for them. So there can be any discussion. And then I believe, Emily, if everything is good with the group here, then it would be suggested to move on for an e-ballot following this meeting. So, so Amendment 1, this one is to add two projects. I'm sorry, just to add one project, the Bayfront to Cranberry intersection project to the 2023 TIP, and to convert, see, the SR 290 bridge over US 20 project to federal funds. So to Fred's comment earlier about federalizing, what does that involve with a project? That basically is when anytime we have a project that is funded completely with non-federal funds, and then we are basically adding federal funds to it, and it has not had federal monies already obligated to the project. So that triggers an amendment because the feds want to see that action is being done and understand, you know, the reasons for it. And so basically, this will be done to projects.
So I got a phone call from Joe. Is that
Sorry?
Could you please hold your comments till the end?
but he's asked the question.
Sorry, you were breaking up there and you need to hold your questions to the end, please. Go ahead, Brandon.
Okay. So anyway, we can also federalize projects as a way to use federal funds on a project that would be eligible. And then in turn, that can free up money, like non-federal money, like state or local funding that can be used elsewhere. So I hope that's a good explanation for now, at least in terms of what it means to federalize a project, if there was any confusion on that. So down to basically amendment number 2.
Excuse me. I have a question, Derek Martin.
Go ahead, Derek.
Go ahead.
When you federalize the project, I also believe that means that all federal requirements need to be met so the project can get those federal funds. How does that differ from if we did it on our own? If you could explain that, that might be helpful to people.
I'm not sure I can comment fully on that, unless Courtney, if you wanted to chime in on that answer, I can certainly look into
have a project that does not have federal funds on it, and it is being paid for with state funds. We are meeting all of the federal requirements. So it does not change the way we do a project between state and federal funds. The only time that would necessarily apply is if we had a local project that we were giving federal funds to. But normally we don't do that unless we do it at the very beginning and know that project is going to be following all of the federal requirements.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Brandon, if you want to continue.
Sure. So amendment number 2, what we're doing in this action is we're moving to a 2026 design with federal funds for the SR8 Arbuckle Road to Phillips Road project. We're also adjusting cash flow for, let's see here, the US 20 Chestnut Street to Imperial Parkway, changing to an 80-20 federal state fund split for the Columbia Avenue Corey Bridge project, and converting, let's see here, yep, the US 20 over Trout Run and the PA 832 26th Street to Presque Isle State Park, also to federal funds. And going down to amendment 3. This is a larger chart, but just to try and break it down into more of a summary, it's moving MPMS projects 98308, 97215, and 97132 to a 2027 let. It's removing MPMS 106586 from the 2023 tip, converting MPMS 88472 and 97178 to federal funds, adding utility and right-of-way phases for MPMS 108952 to the 2023 tip to match the 2021 tip carryover. So basically what that involves is we had the 2023 draft tip made up, locked in months before it was adopted, and we basically need to adjust the funding to match whatever we committed back in 2021, or for the 2021 tip, I should say, which really what happened in fiscal year 2022. And the last part of this is adjusting cash flow to match the PMC approved amount from the 2021 tip carryover for 108952. Amendment 4 is to add MPMS 110836 to the tip. Amendment 5 is converting MPMS 99750, 113822, and 114067 to federal funds, so federalizing those projects. Moving let dates for MPMS 109141, 98308, and 99049. Converting MPMS 1003 to bridge funds, and removing MPMS 106856 from the 2023 tip. And amendment 6 is to convert MPMS 109141 to federal funds, move MPMS 99049 to a 2027 let, and to remove MPMS 106856 from the tip. So that's just a continuation of what we had before. And the final amendment, this was one I believe mentioned earlier in public comment, was to add MPMS 110377 to the 2023 tip. So that was a lot to digest there. So myself, as well as district folks, will be willing to answer any questions people have right now.
Before questions, I just wanted to let everyone know these are the amendments and modifications that we had talked about at the last meeting in September. We just were not able to vote on them. So they're the same ones that we had discussed and opened for questions at that point in time. And then the other thing about when we're voting and some of the items that become amendments instead of modifications are the way our statewide and then our planning organization MOU is written is if we have a project, we may have voted on it on a previous tip. And a good example would be the bike project that's in the city of Erie, the last amendment. And we had voted on it, we'd approved it in 2020 on the 2021 tip. We'd actually done it on the 2019 tip. but because we have not obligated any of that funding with the federal government, we've just had it sitting there as an item ready to move forward when ready for construction. We will have to continue to vote on it when we want to add it or move it between tips, because the FHWA wants to know that we have discussed that project in depth and everyone is aware of it since it's using federal funds. So that is why sometimes you will see, you'll be like, I thought we talked about this 4 months ago. We talked about this years ago. Yes, but when we don't actually spend any of the federal funds that are assigned to a project, we continue to have to vote until we do spend those when we change our tips. So good thing, and yet sometimes it's one of those things that does kind of put us in a position where we have to have votes on something multiple times. So any questions on any of that? There's a lot.
And I guess just to make it clear for the public that might be on, this committee is not the one that votes on these. The coordinating committee is the one that votes on these. So this is just informational and sort of a tack to know about these. And then the vote would come in the future.
All right. Thank you, Courtney, for elaborating. Yes, these were, thanks for the reminder. These were presented at the September meeting, but because of the timing of when they came out, we couldn't hold the vote then. So that's why we're going back through with today's meeting.
Okay, any other questions for Brandon? All right, thank you very much, Brandon. Thank you, Courtney.
All right. Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 4, the Unified Planning Work Program additional funding. I'll turn it over to Emily to describe that.
Well, really fast before we move off the tip financial changes. I wanted to know if this group would want to have an e-ballot to make these changes. So we've talked about them now twice in a public meeting, but we technically, as Matt said, we need the coordinating committee to vote. So the chair of the coordinating committee is here today, Tim May. So would you be amenable to having e-ballot votes for these items?
Does that need any action from us here? That would
No,
just be-
no, it is
Okay.
Tim to approve that. And if anyone has any objections to doing an e-ballot vote, we can discuss. All right. So for those of you on the coordinating committee, look for an email ballot coming out soon. All right, so moving on to the UPWP funds. So the Unified Planning Work Program is what funds the MPO and staff time of the MPO and transportation studies in the county. This body adopts the UPWP every 2 years. So we are actually getting some more planning funds from the IIJA bill, which is good news. So for general transportation planning, we're getting $19,000 a year. That does require a 20% match, a 20% local match. And we're also getting some new funds called Safe and Accessible Funds, which do not require a match. They're 100% federal, but we're only getting $7,875 each year. And I wrote the criteria for using these funds below, because these are new. They're focused on complete streets and accessibility for all. So because these are new funds, they have to be new line items in the UPWP budget. The idea is to open it up to the municipalities who may have ideas about studies that could use these funds to apply for the funds. Because they're not enough really to fund a full study on their own, is what really comes down to. So instead of going through the full process of having applicants come in for the 19,000 or the 7,875. We're hoping that someone in this room is already doing something that falls under this criteria that could use the funds. Does anyone have any other suggestions for using these funds other than just opening it up to the municipalities to use?
Just a point of clarification. The local funds would be the local municipality that's doing the planning grant
Yes,
would participate at that level.
yes. So for the 19,000, the municipality would have to come up with the $4,750 match. But with the safe and accessible, there is no match. So yes, you're right. The 20% would have to come from the municipality for the funds. Does anyone have any thoughts of what this, is anyone doing one of these projects right now, a transportation fund, transportation planning project right now?
Corey is doing the bikeway project, the bike trail, and they're trying to link it with Erie. So they're very active on that. They just opened a new spur here a couple months ago. You know, that may be one of the areas that might be impacted by this funding.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The county did get an ARC grant to study realigning the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail from Corey to Erie through Erie County. Maybe it could go to that project. That is a good point.
Another question, the 19,000 and the 7,875, can they be broken up into multiple grants if they're smaller?
They can, yes. Well, I can let everyone think on this. I will send out some emails to all of the municipalities and transportation authorities. Hopefully we get some good ideas and responses, like the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail study that can use these funds, or if PennDOT has some ideas about road safety audits or something like that that could use these funds, we'd be open to that too. So look for more information coming in emails.
All right, well, if there's no other questions for Emily, then I guess we'll move on to the public participation. Back to Emily.
All right, so the draft public participation plan is out for public comment right now. There were some copies on the back table. If you didn't get a copy, I'm happy to give you one as well. It's posted online. We are having 2 public meetings to discuss this plan. They're both on November 16th. There's a virtual one from noon to 1 and an in-person one on November 16th from 5:30 to 6:30 at the Belasco Library in their Admiral room. So if you would like more information or to discuss the plan, you're welcome to come to either of those sessions for the public participation plan. And we are hoping to have a vote on the adoption of this plan at the December meeting of the coordinating committee. So if anyone would like to make any edits to this, please let me know, any suggestions. Or we can also have a vote to recommend that the coordinating committee adopt this public participation plan in December.
I guess a question, if we do vote to recommend it, you would still include any comments or anything that we get through the public meetings, any potential changes?
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess I would amend that to adopt this in December with all public comment that's received during the public comment period.
Do I have a motion to recommend this to the coordinating committee after it's followed the public process and all public comments have been included?
I'll make that motion.
A second. Thanks, Tom. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to the logo, which will be part of the public participation plan. The coordinating committee gave this committee the power to vote on which option you would like for the logo. So if you are physically in the room, there were little papers in the back. If you could circle, yes, thank you, as Matt is showing. If you could circle one that you would like, and if you are online, if you could enter into the chat box which option you would like. So those options are A, B, C, D, E, and F. So I'll keep going through them so people online can see.
Emily,
Yes.
Emily, can you make the font a little bigger so you actually can see the logo, please?
Yeah, just note that the logo's at the top of the letterhead for each of the options that Emily shows.
Oh, thank you.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so. Option A is what we have now. This is our current logo, which has a lot of information, but it is a raster image, not vector, so not ideal. B has mostly text. It's more descriptive, transportation planning in Erie County since 1964. C has the block, the square with the little icons. D is a circle. E is another circle. And F is just something else with a professional graphic designer, which is not me. So I won't be hurt if everyone selects F. So please cast your ballots either on the sheets of paper or in the chat box.
Do you need our names on the ballots?
No, this can be completely anonymous. I would ask though that only voting members vote and not everyone from the public. So it's a little more official, but you don't have to actually write your name. And please leave them. I will collect everything at the end of the meeting and hopefully we can figure out which is our logo at the end of the meeting today.
All right. Well, then moving on to item 6, other business. The first under that is project updates with Ron Johnson.
Next. A few updates on projects here in Erie County. First one I wanted to mention is the 531 AO8. It's a Depot Road section from I-90 down to Harbor School. We've actually started the right-of-way acquisitions, so that process is moving along well. And currently working through the MPDES permit. So requires one for the project, and it's a lengthy process, but making good progress there. Bayfront, good news. We got the final right-of-way clearance here just recently. All the claims have been settled and paid, so the project is heading towards construction. Any no more issues? One project that hasn't been on the newsletter, hasn't been mentioned, is the Sassafras pedestrian bridge. It was originally, I think, going to be included as part of the Central Bayfront project, and then for a multitude of reasons, was kind of peeled off on its own, to its own project. We're in the very early stages of developing some conceptual plans and something that we can then take to the stakeholders and the public and get input from everybody around the area. So just recently, we submitted an RCP grant that starts for Reconnecting Communities pilot grant. So it's a federal grant through FHWA. We submitted that on October 13th. So we actually requested about $5.7 million, and that's the maximum we are allowed. It's half of the total current estimated cost. So around $12 million total for that pedestrian bridge. That's what we requested. I just want to say thank you to Emily. She was very helpful in sending out letters of support for the project. So she ended up getting about a dozen, I think, letters of support, and there may be folks here that provided a letter. So again, I just want to thank everybody for helping with that process and getting that grant out. We'll get back soon. I don't know how long it usually takes. Quickly. And last project I just wanted to mention was the Niemeyer Road project. I think I've mentioned this before, but we need to go back out to the public. It's been, I think, too long since we've shared the current plans. So we need to go back out, do some more public engagement, and then actually those plans should be done complete, and we can move towards bidding and letting the project. So that's all I have for project updates. So if there's any questions on those or other projects, let me know.
Anybody have any questions for Ron?
Do you happen to know if there are APS signals being installed on the Zip Road project with those lights?
Yes, I just talked to the project manager,
Oh, perfect.
and they are including this.
Okay.
And I guess to clarify, I know that Freda did ask about going as far as Zimmerly. The project does not go to Zimmerly. It stops at, I know it doesn't. It
Yeah.
stops at Niagara Village Drive or whatever that, yeah.
Correct.
Right, because Zimmerly was done when you did the interchange road projects.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you, Ron. Courtney again. Next is federal guidance, promising practices for meaningful public involvement in transportation decision-making. And that would be Rennie Bishop from the Federal Highways Administration.
Perfect. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Emily, can you guys hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Okay. Yes. Yep, I can hear you. Thank you guys for having me on the agenda today. Just wanted to share a couple of things. I think I have the next item too, but in the spirit of the public participation plan that the MPO is coming out with, I did want to share a resource, and it's called Promising Practices for Meaningful Public Involvement in the Transportation Decision-Making Process. So there's a web page and a link to this document, and basically it's a document that defines what meaningful public involvement is. It talks about how to effectively engage a broad representation of community members, and it also provides examples of practical and effective techniques for targeted meaningful public involvement. So it's a great document that you can kind of just look through, see if anything resonates with the MPO, or maybe you'll even find that it's some things in there is what the MPO has already been doing or looking to do. There are some external training webinars on this topic. I believe the last one is December 7th. But they will all be recorded and available for future use. And I believe it'll be on the web page. So I'll also provide that information in case you're curious about learning more. So I definitely wanted to make the MPO aware that that resource is out there. And the next program that I want to talk about is Thriving Communities. And you probably heard about this program before, but it's one of the newer programs that's coming out of Bill. And basically what it is let me see, it's a funding opportunity to provide technical assistance, planning and capacity building to support applicants that are applying for all of these diverse grants that are coming out. So there's webinars on this too. It happened, I feel like back in October, but they are all recorded. And there's two sides of this program. One, you can apply to this program being a recipient who is interested in receiving support, receiving that technical assistance through the program, or you can apply as a capacity builder who would be, you know, anybody to provide that technical assistance out to other people. And there is a funding component that can help you put on that technical assistance. So yeah, there's two kind of pockets of it. I do know that the letter of interest for any communities that desire to receive the support are due by December 6th. And for any organizations that want to apply to be a capacity builder, so those who want to provide technical assistance to others, that opportunity closes pretty soon this month on November 22nd. But if you want to learn more about it, there's a web page on it that I think is provided in the link on the agenda too. So just wanted to make you guys aware. I know it's like a lot all at once, but just wanted to make you guys aware of all these things that are coming out. And as always, if you have any questions on anything, just reach out. And yeah, that's all I have. Thanks, Emily.
Well, thank you, Ronique. Appreciate you sharing that information and being a resource for us. It's always appreciated.
Thanks, you guys.
Next, we have the Federal Passenger Rail Corridor Identification Program. Emily?
Yes, I wanted to briefly mention another federal initiative that is coming out of IIJA bill is the Federal Passenger Rail Corridor Identification Program. So the Erie County, along with MPOs in Cleveland and MPOs in Buffalo, have submitted letters of intent to be included in potential grants for corridor identification. So it's the very first step in looking at expanding Amtrak service through Erie County, specifically between Cleveland and New York City and Cleveland and Toronto. So in the future, if these go into grants, if these go into fruition with actually applying for grants or receiving these, you'll definitely be hearing more about this at the MPO, and the MPO may be asked to be a part of this grant. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew that this was going on to enhance the passenger rail service within Erie County. So that's all for now, but you will likely be hearing more about that in the future.
Great, well, thank you. That's pretty exciting. Would be great if we could increase our passenger rail capacity. So thank you. Next is PennDOT Central Office updates with Kevin McCullough. Kevin?
Matt, I don't think Kevin was able to be on I believe he had a conflicting meeting this morning. So I'll be happy to share those updates if you'd like.
Yeah, please do, Brandon. Thank you.
Okay. So not a lot to update on. Some of it might be really just rehashing things that have been covered in previous meetings, but just to review that Pennsylvania's NEVI plan, as many of you have been aware of, was passed, and it was approved by FHWA on Wednesday, September 14th of this year. The Pennsylvania NEVI plan was informed by a public survey, which garnered over 4,400 responses and public comments, and led to the development of an entirely new goal to address environmental benefits and consider multiple transportation modes for electrification. In addition, the feedback received spurred additional consideration for first responder training and EV response, appropriate signage and location identification, ensuring small and diverse businesses are included as potential partners or sites, and ensured early utility coordination. So just going to see here. PennDOT is in the process of releasing their new NEVI program DC fast charging funding. In advance of this release, PennDOT has held a number of stakeholder sessions throughout the state in October and November. So that's all I wanted to cover with the NEVI updates. For shifting on to the PennDOT multimodal applications, they had opened up, the application period had opened up just before the September coordinating committee meeting on September 12th. And the closing date for that is next week on Monday, November 14th. So the PennDOT's 2023-2024 Multimodal Transportation Fund is accepting applications. Eligible projects include sidewalks, bicycle lanes, streetscape, signage, and more as defined in the MTF guidelines. And a 30% local match is required. I believe at the last meeting, Emily covered a lot of this in detail and sent out information to solicit those applications, but I just wanted to give a quick reminder of that since the period is closing next week for submitting applications. And that's all I was going to cover. I noticed the carbon reduction program is next on the agenda. I wasn't sure when it said PennDOT if that was coming from the district, Emily, or if that was also from the central office.
I have some information on that for you, Brandon.
Okay, sounds good, Courtney. Thanks. Yep.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah, please, pardon.
No problem. So the carbon reduction program is one of yet many of the funding sources that have come out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. It is basically creating a pot of funding that is allowing every state to program projects that will address carbon emission reduction. So what came out about a week and a half ago was that in Erie, over the next 2 years, we are receiving about $1.5 million. And then our other area in District 1 is Mercer County, and they're going to be receiving a little over $3 million over the next 2 years. There is some information that has been sent out stating that what type of projects we are permitted to use it on. Basically, they are ones that we want to make sure we're putting an emphasis on safety, reducing, moving towards our goal of 0 fatalities on our roadways. So we can look at projects that affect serious accidents and fatality rates across Erie. We can look at ones that involve all modes of transportation. So we can look at ones that are focusing on some sort of multimodal effort. The other option is to team up with FTA and look at projects that might reduce emissions for the public transit side of things in the MPO. We can look at things that might affect truck parking. So that is a statewide initiative on a way to reduce emissions, is to try to update truck parking areas. So that's a place that that funding can go. So right now we're at the very preliminary effort. We just found out where our funding is going. We as a state have until November of 2023 to develop a plan on how we're going to reduce carbon emissions statewide. And as a part of that, then we will be coming to an agreement with the plan partners on what our efforts are going to be and how we want to put this new funding towards projects to help reduce carbon emissions in the Erie metropolitan area. So we're looking for more information as we get it. After we get the project, we're going to be putting it on a line item first. So you'll see it it'll be on a line item with the other bill funding that we've received, which is PRIP. So that's where I'm going to be having it put so that it's easy to track where we put it from there. It will be a new fund code. It will be a brand new pot that we can go after. And we will be looking at, it's a little over 1 million in 2023 when they put it on. And then we're going to be getting a little over 500,000 in 2024. And then when financial guidance comes out this summer for the 2025 TIP update, we'll be looking at what we're getting 25, 26, and then out. So that is the carbon reduction program. Any questions on that before I go to another question that we received? Yes.
On the truck parking, are you going to partner with private enterprise, or is that a program that we would buy public land, or buy land and create those? And would that be mostly on interstate, or would that be, if naturally near interstate, but
Yep.
What kind of, not detail, but what kind of framework are we looking at there?
Well, statewide, there is a freight work group that has been working for the last several years on trying to develop basically an ideal idea of what we should be doing across the state, focusing mainly on the interstates for truck parking, because that seems to be our biggest problem. We're having too many trucks trying to park in rest areas and on and off ramps that we shouldn't have them parking on and off ramps. So they are looking statewide at what to do that. That would be probably an interstate endeavor more than, say, a Route 6 kind of a project or something like that. So far, most of the conversation has been rest areas and what we can do with rest area and other things. I think the freight work group, though, is looking at what type of public partnership and public-private partnership we could have to expand that, probably more specifically for the eastern side of the state, where they are seeing a lot of distribution centers being added along their interstates, but that's just a potential for the program.
I've noted that a lot of states have dedicated truck parking, large units. It is a major problem with truckers restricted on hours of operation, etc.
Yep.
And there is a lot of pressure, like you say, like on the intersection up here, for Pilot and those. That's why I asked the question if we're going to partner with some of those truck stops who, that might be a good synergy, because if they could expand their, like Pilot could expand down into that next block, it would help the Pilot also.
Yep.
For overnight parking.
Yes.
So just a thought there.
Yeah, and the problem is that when we're dealing with right-of-way issues, we can't partner with private entities. So when we're talking about things with the interstate, that's one of the things that is a holdup on things that might involve the NEVI plan, is that we can't partner with private companies to come in and do anything in our right-of-ways, because we don't have a way to charge, and we don't have a way to allow other people to make money off of things that are off of the interstate. So what are the next steps and how do we do that? That's part of what that freight work group is working on statewide. So any other questions on carbon reduction? Okay. Do you want me to talk about the VRU project?
Yes.
Okay,
Good.
no problem. So one of the initiatives when we talk about safety is the fact that we are trying to go to a zero fatality on our roadways nationally. So it's not just a Pennsylvania initiative, but one of the policies that has come down from FHWA was that if we have a vulnerable road user, which means that anyone who might be walking or biking, anything that's not motorized, along our roadways, if we do not have statewide less than a 14.5% fatality rate, then we need to put 15% of our safety funding towards those vulnerable road users and towards projects that allow us to work on improving the fatalities of vulnerable road users. We were at like 16% last year. And so we are now under what's considered a vulnerable road user penalty statewide. And so the initiative through central office was what sort of project could we embark on within the next year that would have the best proven safety countermeasure for vulnerable road users that we could look at statewide and was not just a region specific. And they determined that that was going to be pedestrian countdown signal upgrades. So they brought in a consultant. They looked at intersections and they started to tier them out statewide. And then they developed what they thought were the best intersections statewide that would be able to use a pedestrian countdown signal upgrade. Then they took it down to the next level and they looked at only municipalities that have 4 or more of those intersections, because trying to do a contract and trying to do an agreement with, you know, a municipality for one intersection when you're looking at a $21 million project statewide was going to be extremely time consuming. So there were, I think there were like 2,300 intersections. No, wait a minute, that's not right. 1,200 intersections. I had my numbers backwards. 1,200 intersections statewide. In District 1, we had 140 of those intersections, with 13 municipalities being the owners of them, most of them in Erie. In fact, most of them are in Erie, so Erie is going to be the lead county for that. We are being given an additional $2.3 million of safety funds to put towards those 13 municipalities and those 140 intersections. Our traffic unit is spearheading that project for us. Last I talked to them, they had, I think, reached out to every municipality that had it. If you have a question on whether or not yours had, let me know and I can go back and look and let you guys know. But we did have to have an agreement with every municipality that would be interested in that they would take it over if we go in and we do the upgrades. And then we will be letting the project, and the goal is to let it in 2023 to be done. And it would be 100% federally funded. So there would be no local municipality match as long as they were one of the 13 municipalities that had been selected. So another pot of money coming into the region, which we are more than thankful about. Any questions on the vulnerable road user project?
Will that have to be added to the TIP? Since it's a federal project?
Because it is set aside funds, it's coming from the state line item. I do not believe that we are going to need to have a vote on it, but we probably will, I'm hoping, be able to at least present it at the December meeting so that everybody will present it again. You know what I mean? And answer any questions anyone might have. So if you go back, give questions, we'll talk about it again at the December 14th meeting. And then if you guys would like to do one, we could, but we would not be required to. So. I think that was everything you emailed me about, right, Emily? Did I do all of them, I think?
Yes, thank you for all the information.
No
Courtney.
All right, thank you, Courtney. I guess next would be item number 7, hearing of the public. Anybody from the public wish to speak at this time?
This is Freda again. I did have a couple of comments. On Zook, I think maybe it would be Grandview where there would need to be an APS. And I am concerned with the Sassafras Bridge project that, I'm sorry if I'm gonna turn off the second. I'm sorry if there's a, I'm sorry if there's this echo. Anyway, with the Sassafras Bridge project, I think it's important that there be considerable public involvement in that, and that the project should not provide the access at the discretion and whim of the building owner that the bridge may go into. Again, there is concern about requiring people to be in an enclosed area and feeling safe. However, there should not be an access that is provided only at hours that the building is open. With a new administration coming in at the state level, I really would like to encourage the merging of the environmental justice functions across some of the departments. There is within DEP an Environmental Justice Commission, and PennDOT is not, projects and activities from PennDOT are not covered by that commission. And it doesn't seem to make sense to me that there's a governor appointed commission to address environmental justice that doesn't include transportation projects. It doesn't make any sense at all, and the public is confused that they can't bring projects from PennDOT to the activities of that commission. And once again, I noticed Jason is on the call, Jason Sayers is on the call, and I want to urge that the Green Garden Bikeway project not be moved forward without ample public, and I say public meaning the local community involvement. I live in that local community. I'm familiar with Green Garden, the entire length of it that would be impacted by the project. And I don't see that there has been any real consideration or consultation in any way with the public over this. Thank you.
Thank you, Freda.
Comment on that. So
Yes, Leah is going to comment on that, Freda.
we were held up a little bit, but we are going to have our public meeting, I think in December, for Green Garden, and letters will go out to residents along the river. So that's shortly.
Okay, thank you. Were you able to hear that, Freda?
Barely, but there's going to be a meeting sometime, but I don't know when she said it was going to be.
In December, and letters will go out to everyone in the immediate area.
Well, I encourage her to post it on Nextdoor and Facebook, because there are, at least in the Nextdoor neighborhood that I helped to build, there's about 250 households that are members of Nextdoor, and we live in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other comments from the committee members? All right, hearing none, I think I will call for adjournment. I do want to state the next meeting is of the coordinating committee. That's December 14th at 10 a.m. That is here in this room at Summit Township, and I assume it'll be online as well through Zoom. Okay, I guess I will accept a motion to adjourn then. Do we have a second? So seconded. I guess we stand adjourned at 11:06. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yeah.
Oh, man, I guess I gotta collect.
Yeah, don't forget.
Got it.
Get
All right.
away.
Gonna have
Oh,
a
there
good
you
day.
go.
They all 7 votes for the logo.